Wall Street veteran Bernard Madoff has been arrested and charged with running a $50 billion Ponzi scheme.
Congress wants to know what caused the Enron meltdown.
Now, while the collective rage currently is focused on WorldCom,
Tyco CEO Dennis Kozlowski was convicted of looting hundreds of millions of dollars.
This is one of the biggest fraud cases ever.
Their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Find out more on this week's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
Imagine that you're a young, impressionable, evangelical teenager.
I'm there.
You're in a church service where the person who is giving their sermon has been involved in missions and taking the gospel of Christ out into the world and is saving souls, one person at a time. You're overwhelmed by the message. You feel the call to go out into the world and make disciples of all nations. You fundraise, you put on those khaki shorts, you get your shots, and you go to a far off land to win souls for Christ. This same scenario happened to the focus of today's story, Renee Bach, a bright-eyed American girl who only wanted to save people, but ended up leaving a trail of destruction in her path. What happened? Find out on today's episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm so hot for the Lord right now.
It would be on fire for God.
Oh my God.
You don't say you're so hot for the Lord.
I'm so hot for the Lord right now.
No, you're on fire for God.
Oh yeah.
You're not lukewarm.
Oh yeah. I'm so hard for Jesus right now. I'm so hard on Jesus right now.
Hard as nails.
Absolutely. Is that right? I haven't been to church in a while. That's what you do, right?
No, you're on fire for God.
Yeah, that's why the pastor looked at me weird last time.
When you said I'm so hot for Jesus?
Yeah, I thought it was like call and response. So you sit front row and you say, "Oh, I'm so hot for the Lord," every time they say something, and they kicked me out expeditiously.
What kind of church did you go to?
Huh?
What church did you go to?
Methodist.
Actually, Methodists are the most chill out of all of them, so you probably could have gotten away with it there.
I don't think so. I think you overestimate
they support
my ability to
they
get away
support
with
gay
things.
rights. They would believe. They'd be like, it's okay.
Supporting gay rights and supporting some guy sitting in the front row going, "Oh my God, I'm so hot for the Lord" during the sermon are very different things.
Well, on that note, welcome to a new episode of White Collars, Red Hands.
I'm Kishan.
And I'm Nina, and we are hot for Jesus.
So hot for the Lord.
Hot for Jesus. Actually, we are changing our podcast dynamic, and now we are a Christian...
We've changed. We've reformed.
For Christian friendship podcast about how I can be friends with someone of the opposite sex and not stumble in my walk.
It's called Two Fishes, Same Ocean. I don't know.
Two fishes, one loaf of bread.
Sure. You know, I don't know the things.
Because Jesus fed the 5,000 people with 2 pieces of fish and a loaf of bread.
I got kicked out of the church before that story. God.
Well,
sorry.
This episode has nothing to do with that story. That miracle that Jesus performed. This is actually just the miracles of Renee Bach. If you've been listening to us for a while, back in 2021, we did an episode about Mother Teresa, and this episode kind of has the same vibe.
It's been 3 years?
Dude, yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I distinctly remember watching the documentary in this one apartment that I lived in, which I lived in 2021. And then I remember texting the guy I was talking to at the time, which was in 2021, and being like,
Mother Teresa's a piece of shit.
I said, do you want to hear something crazy? And he said, sure. And I said, Mother Teresa's a scumbag.
You still talk to that guy?
You know I don't talk to that guy.
Sounds about right.
Renee Bach was born in Virginia and was one of 5 homeschooled children. Her being homeschooled, remember that.
It's going to make sense.
She came from, what?
It said it's going to make sense.
It's going to make sense. She came from a family that really felt called to service. Her family actually had a farm, she grew up on a farm, that would help children with special needs. Bach felt called to ministry after listening to a sermon her senior year in high school. And then because she felt so called to go into the mission field, she left for a volunteer program in Uganda in 2007. So programs like this are very popular in the evangelical community. Christianity. I know a lot of times you'll hear about Mormons going on a 2-year mission, but it is not uncommon for evangelical teenagers to go on missions trips, and not just a long-term missions trip after graduating high school. I remember in high school there was a program. I don't care. I'll go ahead and say the name. It's called Meeting God in Missions. They were coming to our school and telling us about all the important work they were doing overseas, and then they would be very, very persuasive, and they would have a very persuasive sermon that would like get you in your feels, and then it would be followed by a worship service. And then usually during that worship service, it was very common for young people to get their calling revealed to them, which is almost always something to do with the mission field. And there were a lot of people from my high school that participated in these sorts of programs for the first year after leaving high school.
I guess my question is, so like the thing about Mormonism, right, is it's about to spread the word. It's like a recruiting mission. Yeah. Is this also like that? Like you go and you do good works, but you also like spread the word of Jesus to the Ugandans while you're there?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so it's literally just the same thing.
It's the same thing. Honestly, though, a lot of it is, in my personal experience, a lot of it was not. It wasn't presented to you as like, we need to go save people, which is what it was. That like, we need to go like spread our religion. You knew that like you were going to be doing some of that, but most of it was like, look at these people. They're in need. They need our help. They need us to build an orphanage. They need us to bring them food. Like that's how it was presented to you. So you really felt like you were helping someone versus like, you would view Mormon missionaries as just going door to door, knocking and harassing people, where we were like, no, we're doing good. We're doing a good thing.
Yeah. And they would not go away. You'd be like, no. And they'd be like, can we just leave this book with you? And you're like, how many times do I have to say no? And then they're like, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk to you again because you answered the door. So I just stopped answering the door. I was like, nope. Once I see them with their stupid little bikes and their helmets, I'm like,
nope.
Ring the doorbell as much as you want.
I'm not coming to the door. It's funny, when I was living in Japan, I actually ran into some Mormons. And
they're like, are you one of us?
Yeah, kind of. And then she asked me if I wanted to do a book club with them.
Oh, what's the book? Let me guess.
And I was so desperate for friends, I almost said yes. And then I was talking to my best friend about it, and she's like, Nina, don't do that. They're going to try to convert you, like blah, blah, blah. And then funny enough, that friend ended up converting to Mormonism.
Oh, nice. I guess the book club wasn't going to do Twilight?
No, I guess not.
Woof.
My friend's not Mormon anymore, though. Okay, so it was during Bach's time on this trip that she realized that God was calling her to stay in Uganda full time and help people.
Renee, those people in Uganda need you. You gotta stay full time. Don't go back.
That cannot be the voice of God.
God can be whatever you want it to be.
Oh my God, I don't like that at all. That's so slimy.
Come on, Renee. Just stay in Uganda.
I don't like
those people need you.
I don't like your God voice.
But remember when I said my only begotten son? You should stay in Uganda. Do me a favor. They need you.
You sound like Olaf. Kind of.
From Frozen?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I don't know, but I don't like it. So the Ugandans would, okay, so, all right, let's get into it. Missions is an issue, okay? It's an issue for a lot of reasons. In this scenario, Ugandans would, depending on where you go, be very accepting of the mission work. They unfortunately tend to look up to the white people that come into their community. A big reason for this is because I actually found this out when researching for this. They have white Jesus over there. And I don't know why I didn't realize white Jesus was over there, but white Jesus is over there. So they would see pictures of white Jesus. Then these people who are talking about Jesus are coming over there. And so there's an inherent trust there for a lot of people, or probably more so in the past than now. I think it still happens now, but in the past, very much so. So they're kind of welcoming to these people. And I know we've talked about this before on the podcast, but there's something called white savior complex. And this is a huge issue, especially in the evangelical church, where because you're white, or not even necessarily because you're white. I think a lot of white people go over and do these missions and aren't like, I'm white and I know better than you. Subconsciously, that's what it is. But like,
oh yeah, but they're not going around saying it out loud. Yeah, they're
not going to say that. And I know people who have been on missions trips who, if you were like, well, do you think you're better because you're like white and or Christian? And they would be like, oh my God, no. But these people do need saved. Like, it's more of a religion thing for them. But at the bottom line, like, this is a white Christian God, and you're trying to push your white Christian God on other people.
Yeah.
And it's been proven that these type of missions trips, especially short-term missions trips, are actually do a lot more harm than good, and they're very detrimental to the areas that they service.
Damned if you don't. I guess it's just mission impossible.
There is actually an organization called No White Saviors, which aims to tackle the issue of white missionaries going to other countries and colonizing them. Primarily, they deal with African countries, and we are going to talk about them a little bit later. What was interesting was the documentary I was watching. One of the members of No White Saviors was saying that many people believe that white Christian women will start organizations in Africa and go over to these, or not even, just a lot of white women who are Christian will go over to other countries and start charities or do mission work because it gives them a place of power that they wouldn't otherwise have in their own or in their own homes, in their own marriages, or in their own communities.
Interesting.
Which I had never heard that before, but I was like, that makes sense. In 2009, Bach established Serving His Children, which started out as a feeding program in an impoverished neighborhood in Jinja, Uganda. She was feeding about 1,000 children every few days. Her mom actually became the director of Serving His Children in the United States. Fun fact, Bach actually adopted one of the children that she serviced when she was 20 years old. The child's mother passed away, and there was no immediate family to take care of the child, so she...
Bach was 20 years old.
Yeah.
For a second there, it sounded like you would say she adopted a 20-year-old woman.
No,
it's like, you're mine now.
She adopted a baby.
Okay.
She adopted a baby when she was 20. Yeah. Bach's organization did start out as a feeding program. They were just giving kids food twice a day. But the organization started helping hospitals with overflow of malnourished children. The hospitals were overwhelmed with the amount of children that they were receiving and didn't have enough space for them. So Serving His Children was able to help. The hospitals actually contacted Bach for this. Bach did not reach out to the hospitals. They were just like, hey, we have these kids. They're about to be discharged. We have too many kids coming in. Can they just stay with you and you give them food while they get better?
It's like a halfway house for hungry kids.
Basically. Yeah. It was basically a rehab center, really, was what it became. And so this made Bach restructure her organization to help more with malnutrition. She ended up closing the feeding program and made the organization a malnutrition rehab center. The hospitals and community were very grateful for her. Not only was she helping the hospitals service children that they weren't able to help, but she was also employing some people in the community. Bach had hired a woman named Constance, and she became the head nurse for the organization. Constance ended up teaching Bach how to do simple medical tasks when admitting children into the center, such as taking weight, arm circumference, listening to their heart, etc.
So using a scale, using a tape measure, and just listening.
Listen, I wouldn't know it. Here, you know what? I would not know what to listen for when listening to a heart.
Well, you never said that. You just said if she's listening to her, be like, oh, it's beating.
It's beating.
You don't know if she knew what she was listening for. You just know she could put the stethoscope to a kid's chest.
Yeah, that's fair.
And be like, oh, yep, you're alive.
It's alive for now. Constance would say that if any children had any severe issues, that they would take them to the hospital. But sometimes the hospital wouldn't be able to take the children, or they wouldn't have the medications or oxygen that the children would need. Because of the need of the center, some medications ended up being purchased in bulk, such as malaria meds and amoxicillin, so that they would have those on hand when the children were there. Which, okay. I mean, that's not that big of a deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's problems with just giving everyone, like people who aren't doctors, just giving people antibiotics.
Correct.
You know, the anti-malarial drugs probably aren't that big of a deal, but I think that's not the worst problem here, right?
No, there's gonna be a lot more problems. Bach would blog about her experiences, and her blog became so popular that people started sending money to her in order to help with the organization. Her mother notes that the more dramatic a story was, the more money they would receive, which makes sense. At the beginning, the hospital was the only one that was sending the referrals to the center, but then over time, people in the community started bringing their children straight to the center.
Like an urgent care?
Basically, yeah. They were just like, oh, we heard that you help. Can you take my kid? And they would.
I guess, what do you say?
Right.
No?
Right. So Bach says that she wasn't prepared for how sick some of the children were that would come in. They would be really sick. Some children would be carried in by their parents and they had died while in transport. Because of the lack of services in the hospitals, Serving His Children decided to raise money to get their own medical supplies, not just medicine. They ended up getting oxygen tanks, IVs, things like that. Even though, and all this was being bought by Bach, even though she had absolutely no medical background. Remember, this woman never even went to college. She was homeschooled. She claims that she was taught, so Bach claims that she was taught how to use an IV and to clean wounds. She did ended up, after the center opened, she did end up taking a 2-week missionary medical course. Who knows what was involved in that?
How hurt are you going to get doing missionary? Wait, what? What are you talking about?
You can get really hurt doing missionary.
What are you talking about?
We've had different experiences.
What the fuck is a missionary medical course?
I don't know.
What is that?
I
what
guess
does that
it's just
mean?
like, hey, flies are biting this person, give them this.
Is this just a first aid, like an extensive first aid course?
That is my understanding, is that it's an extensive first aid course.
Oh, man. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's honestly medical.
I guess it's better than nothing. But
I'm sorry. Like, I'm probably going to, depending on who's listening to this episode, I'm going to piss people off by saying this, but I find issues with medical missions in general. Like, from what I read and from what I understood, Renee Bach was not doing this, but I know of people who have gone in, who are in the medical field, who have done medical missions. And like, I had a roommate who was I forget what her major was, but she was in medicine, and she did a medical mission trip to Haiti, and she came back, and I was like, how was it? And she was not happy with how it went, and she was like, I just really don't like how they run a lot of things down there, because like they would make the people pray with them before they gave them aid.
Oh, that is the same thing as Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
She also did that.
Yeah.
It's like, you basically, okay, well, you want our help?
You got to be a Christian.
You got to also take Jesus.
Yeah.
If you're going to take penicillin here, you're going to take a shot of Jesus as well.
Yeah. Volunteers would note that she was injecting the infants with shots, but she didn't necessarily know what she was doing. Some of the care that was being given was so intense that it was comparable to a NICU. Bach was
the hell's a NICU?
The infant ICU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought that was like
it's natal? Is that what the N stands for? Natal intensive care unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could never work there. Bach was head of medical, diagnosing children, administering medicine, even though she had no medical training or no medical background. It was also odd because she had hired Constance, who was a nurse, but placed herself as the head of medical.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, can you get one, like even a nurse practitioner, or like one person? Like, I'm not even saying everyone has to be a medical expert, but like at least someone there that can oversee everybody else, right?
When Bach was asked medical questions, there weren't really any answers. That like if she was questioned about like, hey, why did you do this? Or like, hey, how do you do this? Like she'd really like go about the answer.
See, what you got to do is that shots come in threes, right? Because 3
Have
is a lucky
you ever had
number.
a dream where you when you
Ma'am, you are putting in an IV right now. You cannot be this disoriented.
There was a nurse who went to volunteer with the organization, and when a child died while in the care of Bach, she looked over his chart and realized that his dosages were off for his weight and that he was actually being overdosed.
Oh, sweet.
When going through all the charts of the children who died, they were all dying within 5 days of arrival. This nurse also notes that like a lot of times vitals were not being checked when they would get there. So she would just like do a brief like look over and be like, oh, this is what we should do. Many children at the center were suffering from refeeding syndrome, which I did not know about until I researched this. When being malnourished, you slowly have to feed and rehydrate the child because if they're given too much fluid too fast, it can cause too much pressure on the heart. Yeah. When children were coming to the center, Bach was immediately putting them on an IV.
Yep, that'll kill you.
Yeah. The nurse also noted that the medication that the children were being given was too extreme for their condition as well. When the nurse questioned Bach about it, she explained that when administering medication, quote, God just tells me what I need to do.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
That's not good. God didn't invent medicine. I don't know if you know that. Doctors invented medicine.
Yeah, but God gave them the knowledge to invent the medicine, so actually God invented the medicine.
You guys should invent Viagra. You guys should. This is God here. I think that you should.
God here.
I know I made them soft, but I'm giving medicine the means to undo what I did previously.
There's a quote that Bach would use a lot, and I've heard in the Christian community. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Great.
Which basically means
no one's qualified to do their job.
It doesn't matter what needs to be done. God will see that it will happen. It doesn't matter if you don't have any training or any experience. Yes. So I truly believe that based on everything I was reading and based on what I watched, like when Bach was performing the medical procedures or these, I don't think procedures is the right word, but administering this medical care, she truly believed that like God was working through her and that God would tell her what to do in order to save this child.
Oh my God. It's that, have you ever seen those memes where it's like some guy like about to do heroin, but it's like Jesus' arm and he's like, and it's like you're hurting him when you're hurting yourself or whatever.
I've seen those.
It's like that or like Ghost and he's just behind her while she's like, slowly killing an African child. Just like, yes, he's working through me.
Yep. That's exactly. Yeah. I hate that. When the nurse would present Bach with information, it would fall on deaf ears. It felt as if Bach, like she felt that if she gave Bach medical advice and Bach took it, that Bach would feel like she failed. One day, the nurse got called because of a baby named Patricia. The baby was She got called because of a baby named Patricia. Patricia was possibly having an anaphylactic reaction from a blood transfusion. When asked what the baby's vitals were before the transfusion, she was told that she didn't take the baby's vitals. This baby looked scary. I've never seen such a swollen child in my life.
Well, yeah, imagine if they injected you with frickin' peanuts, Nina.
Yeah, literally. That's what it would be. That's
why you can't... I'm assuming that what happened is they gave the baby the wrong blood type of blood.
I'm guarantee they did.
Because that's what happens.
So I actually didn't know. I don't know much about medicine. I didn't know that you could go into anaphylactic shock from a blood transfusion.
Well, that's the whole thing is what A, B, and O mean are the antigens that are on your blood cells. So if you get blood cells that present a different antigen, your immune system goes, I haven't seen this, better freak the fuck out. And then you go into anaphylactic shock, which is why you can only receive blood that has antigens that you already have in your own blood.
I don't know my blood type.
I don't know mine either.
Okay, good.
I've never needed to, thank God. But yeah, I'd have to be like...
One time I donated blood and they were supposed to send me something that said what my blood type was and they never did.
I know how to blood type. We'll just get a kit. You come over, I'll take some of your blood, we'll do it.
Oh, can we?
I don't know if I could actually buy those kits as a normal person.
Damn.
I did do it in college, though. I do know how to blood type.
How do you do it?
So you get the antigens that are in there, and if you put it in with the blood and it coagulates, that means that those it means.
So you need to get like 4 samples and then coagulate each one.
You get 2, so you get A and B, and then if neither of them react, you're O. Oh, well, so yeah, 3 because you need the positive, negative, the rhesus antigen. So you have A, B, and then the rhesus antigen. And that'll give you A, B, O, and then positive or negative.
But O can get any of them.
Yeah, because you don't have any antigens.
Oh.
That's the O means like absent, like 0.
O means optimum blood.
Optimum blood. Oh, you fucking normies. I have optimum blood.
So when poor little baby Patricia had this anaphylactic shock, they rushed her to a bunch of hospitals because like... It's not funny. Every hospital.
Stop laughing, man. What are you talking? What are you doing?
It's horrible. I've noticed lately I laugh when things are bad.
Okay. Not great on a podcast.
No, I don't mean to laugh. It was really tragic and horrible. But like all these hospitals like couldn't take her and she was going into anaphylactic shock and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? So they drove her to like 4 different hospitals. They ended up getting her in a hospital. But when she was discharged, she got a flesh-eating bacteria.
Oof, out of the pan, right?
Yeah. It like ate up her face. It like fucked up this baby's face. Poor little thing. It looked bad. It was gross. It was honestly gross. I like couldn't even look at it.
Ugh.
Oh, it was so gross. Bach did know that the child had the flesh-eating bacteria, but the doctor at she said that the doctor at the hospital, quote, didn't make it seem like a big deal. So she had like brought her back to the center. Like the nurse was noticing that she had all this shit on her face and she was like, what the fuck is wrong with this baby? Like this volunteer nurse. And she was trying to figure it out. And then she finally like was able to get a hold of the notes from like the discharge papers. And it was noted in the discharge papers that she had this flesh-eating bacteria. And she told Bach, she was like, yo, what the fuck? Like we should have been treating this as soon as she came back. And she's like, oh, it didn't seem like a big deal. And now this child is like honestly deformed for life.
Oh man, at least she lived.
She did live. After that happened, that volunteer nurse left. She contacted the board of serving his children about what was going on at the center. Bach claims that the nurse could tell a good story and that she didn't know what she was talking about. Bach also says that she didn't give any blood transfusions without supervision.
Supervision of who?
Honestly,
you named yourself the chief of medicine.
Exactly.
Who's supervising you, bro?
Exactly. I guess Constance, the head nurse. But then when Constance was asked about that particular situation, she's like, yeah, I don't know why she gave her a blood transfusion. I wasn't there. So, yeah. Bach's mother is quoted saying, the life of a child clearly trumps checking off boxes and following a list of rules. But like you could kill the kid by not helping it. Or by not going through the proper...
The life of the child is why you have the boxes to check.
Exactly.
And the lists of rules.
Exactly.
It's to make sure you're doing things
correctly.
Right. What does she think doctors are doing? They're like, man, we do paperwork for fun.
Yeah, literally. I don't know. In 2011, 26 children died at serving his children. Lori also says that the number of children who died was because the situation was very dire and that like they couldn't really do anything to save the kids anyway. Her mother also says that, so it was very interesting because like this interview that I was watching with her mom, they were asking her if she ever felt like her daughter overstepped in the regards of medical stuff or if she read anything in the blog that ever concerned her. And she refused to answer that question.
I plead the fifth.
Basically, she was like, I'm not going to answer that question. And then they were like, well, did you ever read anything in the blog that concerned you? And she was like, you're not going to get the answer out of me that you want.
I don't know what a blog is.
Never heard of it.
What's a blog?
Because of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that were being donated to serving his children, they did actually bring a doctor on board.
Oh, finally.
Finally. But many children were still dying. They were saying that this was mainly because they were coming in too late, which, I don't know. I'll go ahead and share this statistic now. I was going to share it later, but it's fine. When they looked at all the children that serving his children took care of, they had an 11% fatality rate. But in the hospitals, they had a 17% fatality rate.
Yeah, but people with worse conditions are going to go to the hospital. So you can't really just compare the statistics.
Correct. You can't.
Because if it's really serious, they're not going to take them here first.
Well, some of them were, though, because they actually believed that she was a doctor.
Yeah, but I'm saying like over the average.
Correct.
The average person is going to take them to the hospital
let's
first.
be real. The hospital's just going to get more people than this center.
That too, higher sample size.
And so, there were a percentage of these children that, although this is very alarming that this happened, like there is a percentage that were going to die no matter what, just because of how unbelievably sick they were. Mm-hmm. But still, because they were having so many children that were coming in too late, serving as children then started going out into the communities to service children sooner so that they wouldn't die. All this is going on. Bach's acting like a doctor when she's not a doctor. She's honestly serving his children as a clinic when it's not really a medical clinic. She really doesn't have any medical background. She does have these doctors, but she's the one in charge.
Did she wear a white coat and like a stethoscope?
None of them did.
Okay.
Yeah, but she had a stethoscope.
Okay.
She had a stethoscope. There's hundreds of pictures of her injecting children with IVs.
I don't know why I'm trying to get her for impersonating a doctor. Well,
she was though.
I know, but I was thinking like, did she look like it? Because that, perception's a big thing. If she went around also wearing a lab coat.
No one was wearing a lab coat.
Okay.
At her
That's
center.
all I wanted to know.
Yeah. Some people claim that they felt as though Bach did not respect the Ugandan people, acting that she knew more than the doctors that she hired, she knew more than the social workers, and knew more than the nurses. And there was video footage that I watched where one of the nurses that she hired was performing care on a child, and she was like, okay, do this, okay, do that, okay, do this. And it's like, this woman actually went to school and became a nurse.
That is a nurse.
That's an actual nurse. You play doctor. Many of the staff felt as though they couldn't report their concerns to Bach or speak up because they were worried that they would lose their jobs. Other missionaries and aid workers in the area started having meetings about Bach because they were alarmed at what was going on. A group of missionaries went to the U.S. Embassy about Bach, but the embassy did basically nothing, saying that it was a Ugandan problem since everything was happening in Uganda.
That sounds like a U.S. Embassy response.
Yeah, absolutely. They then went to the police, but police officers from another city told them to quit investigating. This is because most aid comes from foreign people and foreign countries, and they didn't want to cause any issues because then people would be less likely to come and help them. So they took all this information of the children dying and her passing this off as a medical facility and all these major issues. They took it to a hospital and talked to a doctor, and they ended up reporting it to the district health officer. The district health officer did go and check out the center to see if it was up to standard. The health inspectors ended up closing down the center. It was found out that Serving as Children was not licensed as a medical center, even though they were presenting themselves as a medical center. They did have a license, but it was only good for 1 year. And they had been operating.
So they got approved at one point, but they just never renewed it?
Correct. They never renewed it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just dumb.
It's literally just stupid. It's stupid because you have hundreds of thousands of dollars pouring in. The amount of money that was pouring in, not only could they have hired they did hire a real medical staff, but she could have went and gotten medical training. Renee Bach could have actually went and gotten medical training. And then
True, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And you could have kept your licenses up to date. You could have kept all your checks and balances, but you didn't. because you wanted to play God Doctor and you wanted to play God, and it was all a fraud.
I strongly believe that there are a lot of, like, most everything you could learn just by doing it for long enough. Being a doctor is probably not one of them.
No.
It just requires a lot of,
knowledge.
background knowledge.
And skill.
Yeah. That needs to be fostered at a place of actual learning instead of just by
being homeschooled.
Yeah.
On a farm.
Yeah.
In Virginia.
Yeah. I just don't trust you to read enough medical books to just know enough to be a doctor.
No. 105 children died at the center. There were claims that 800 children died, but that's like not confirmed. The official number is 105, which is still a lot.
I'm about to say, I was like, if we're talking the difference between 105 and 800 grains of rice, right? That's not a big difference. But 105 to 800 dead children?
Well, it was
they're like, you know.
It was also said that like
both bad.
940 children went to get rehabilitated. So like...
So that means only 140 made it?
Yeah, I don't think that's accurate. It is said by a Ugandan... I mean, like, and a Ugandan doctor did back her up by saying, like, a lot of these kids would have died because of their complications. Many of the children who came in did have HIV or TB, but it was also said that Bach diagnosed some children with AIDS when they didn't have AIDS.
Okay, they make like a COVID test for that, basically.
Yeah,
like,
literally.
It's the same kind of thing.
So they did get shut down, but then in 2017, Serving His Children ended up being able to partner with the Ugandan government, and they opened another center. And I was gonna really try to remember how to say this. Okay, they ended up opening another center. Basically, they were operating with the same mission, but this time they were working alongside the government in order to protect themselves. So, remember that organization I was talking about earlier, No White Saviors?
I do remember.
Well, they came after Serving His Children in 2018. They were slamming her organization. They were actually calling her the Angel of Death.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was Dr. Mengele's name. I don't know if we can just use that name for anyone.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. They were saying a lot of things. They were sensationalizing a lot of things. Was what she was doing wrong? Yes. Was she operating as a doctor when she wasn't a doctor? Yes. Was her medical center not up to snuff? Yes. However,
so pretty.
Some of the shit they were saying, I was like people were calling her a serial killer.
Oh. Yeah. It doesn't, like, it seems bad, but yeah, I don't know if I would, from what we know so far.
Like, if you go on TikTok and watch TikTok videos about her, they are all pretty framed as like, this woman was killing children on purpose, and like, this woman was like, came to Uganda to kill children, and I'm like, I'm not necessarily convinced that that's what she did, to be honest with you. I think she operated poorly. I think that she got in over her head.
Yeah.
I think that she, like, when they started asking her to take on these malnourished children and she started doing it and started doing the medical stuff, I think she felt like she couldn't stop.
I feel like recklessly negligent is probably...
That was what I would say.
Is probably a good description of it. It's like, was she doing something maliciously? Probably not, but she was... it was...
I mean, she was playing with people's lives.
She was reckless in not knowing.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So, still her fault.
Well, because of all this attention from No White Saviors, and she started receiving a lot of death threats, and she ended up having to flee Uganda. These death threats were also like very extreme. I know that like, I'm going to kill you is already extreme, but people were saying things like they should murder Bach's children in front of her and make her watch. Like, they were saying some really insane things. Since No White Saviors started going after Serving His Children, donations for the organization dropped 50%. No White Saviors actually contacted a lawyer in contacted a lawyer in order for Bach to be persecuted by the Ugandan government. The lawyer took on the case, and she was like, yes, I absolutely don't agree what was going on. The lawyer found issues with the way that Bach presented herself to the community. Bach was serving an extremely poor area in which the citizens couldn't read, couldn't write, or speak English.
Oh, like where you're from, Ohio.
Yeah. Honestly. She wore a stethoscope around her neck and administered care, so people believed she was a doctor and they trusted her. The lawyer ended up reaching out to families who lost children at Serving His Children. One mother who had lost a child actually went to local radio stations to interview to try to figure out what happened to her child, but nothing was done. So when this woman was introduced to Serving His Children, it was when Bach was actually going out into the villages to try to like find kids that needed help. So Bach had come into her home. She took her child's measurements, and then she gave the child food and medical care. She took him with her. So she took his measurements, took him back to Serving His Children, gave him medical care, ended up returning him home. And then 3 days later, he died. And the woman had like no idea what had happened. And this had actually happened to, this had happened. She was not the only family that this happened to. The lawyer brought forward that Bach had been running a fraudulent medical facility and that caused these children to die while in her care. In 2019, they ended up suing Serving His Children and Renee Bach. It was a civil case, so if Bach lost, she would not see prison. There was a mediation, and it was believed that if the mothers of these children were spoken to directly, that they'd be able to come to an agreement. The mediation did not go as planned, and they ended up going to trial. Well, Bach was the one that was like, oh, if I could just talk to these women.
Just get me in the room with them, okay? Just get me in the room with them, and I guarantee you that all these dead kid stories, it'll just blow off their minds.
They're just like not gonna care that their kids died anymore because like I'm gonna talk to them.
Trust me, I got this.
Which honestly is it's honestly so disrespectful for her to even think that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if I just talk to them, they won't care, or not that they won't care, but they'll understand.
Yeah.
Why their kids died.
Let me just explain. Being a doctor was like really cool, okay? It made everyone think I was really cool. So yeah, that was kind of it, actually.
Yeah. Bach stands firm on the fact that her organization is not responsible for the deaths of these children. Yeah. The lawyer was actually able to get a hold of baby Patricia. Remember her earlier?
Oh, yeah.
The baby who got the flesh-eating bacteria that wasn't properly cared for. She actually was able to find Patricia and her mother, and she interviewed them thinking that this was going to be like really good for their case. But Patricia's mother feels as though Bach saved her child's life and did not want to sue. Which, I guess it can be argued that she did. However, she also put that child through a lot of physical trauma that she wouldn't have otherwise gone through.
I guess like what? Like from the...
She was malnourished.
Okay, I guess. But she also gave her that wrong blood infusion.
Correct. She made her go into anaphylactic shock, and she made her get a flesh-eating... She didn't make her, but she ended up contracting a flesh-eating bacteria that wasn't properly cared for.
Yeah, it's not... I'm not saying it's great. Right? But yeah.
But she fed my baby, so. The court case had been pushed back multiple times because of COVID. The case was halted in Uganda, but the group No White Saviors took it upon themselves to make Bach pay for what she did. They actually decided to contact the FBI in Virginia, but not much came of that.
I don't see unfortunately, I don't see the FBI giving a shit.
Well, it didn't I'm not trying to dismiss anything, but it didn't happen on U.S. soil.
Yeah, which is why the FBI probably wouldn't give a shit because they don't care. They're off, planning coups or something. And yeah, they probably couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. What are they going to do?
No, it would be in Ugandan jurisdiction, I would think.
Yeah.
Bach decided to settle with the mothers for the deaths of their children. in the final document, it stated that so in order for her to settle, she like required that there be a clause in there that serving his children was not liable for the children's deaths. And she paid each of the families 35,000 Ugandan shillings. This is less than $10,000 in US money. There was also another suit brought against serving his children in 2021 from 4 more families who either lost children in Bach's care or their children had complications after receiving treatment at serving his children. Serving that, since it was brought forward in 2001, I don't think it actually has been like final, like nothing's come of it yet. But serving his children did end up dissolving. So it is no longer an organization. As of right now, Renee Bach has not served any jail time, and I don't think that she ever will.
Probably not.
No. But she does say, I feel like I've taken the hit for every white person who's ever stepped foot in Uganda.
What a gross quote. All right, Renee, calm down. Oh my God.
I was like, I don't feel bad for you.
Don't worry, white people. Now you can go to Uganda. I have taken the sacrifice. I have crucified myself, if you will.
And what was like gross about this? Like the grossest thing about all this was she was just like, I'm so homesick for Uganda. I'm so homesick for Uganda. And I'm like, bitch, you're not from there.
So go back.
She can't.
Oh, she got kicked out permanently?
No, but like there were so many death threats on her life that she was just like concerned.
You can go if you want then. Obviously, with how much they want you there, you might as well.
Yeah, and she like feels really bad because she's like, my daughter like can't grow up in Uganda.
Go back.
Yeah. But she'd probably get killed.
Exactly. It's not like you can't go back. It's you fucked up and
well, correct.
Right? And oh no, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Yeah.
Well, too bad.
It's too damn bad. Yeah. I don't feel bad for her. I really don't. I feel bad for her kid.
Sure.
But
whatever.
But she was also like, oh, my daughter sticks out like a sore thumb. We live in rural Virginia. And
so move from rural
exactly.
Virginia.
I'm like, you don't have to live in rural Virginia. You don't have to raise your Ugandan daughter in rural Virginia.
Also, you know that you're freaking, you're not, I don't think she's going to raise her close to her heritage.
I mean, I'm sure when they were in Uganda, yeah.
I don't think so. I think
I'm
Renee's not going to be like the whitest person you've ever met.
Well, yeah, she is, but like they were surrounded by so many Ugandan people that it would make me think that like she couldn't raise her as a white person. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I would think it'd be pretty difficult to like completely raise her as a white American.
Whiter and more American than anyone else that she's around.
Well, correct.
Probably.
Yeah.
So relatively.
Yeah, relatively. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what she was exposing her to. I don't know what.
All right, I'm just saying, like, she's going to grow up thinking that Renee's potato salad is, like, the best potato salad in the world.
Hey,
and then she's finally going to have good potato salad.
They eat Ugandan food once a week.
Okay.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, you comfort me.
Oh, the rod. I'm so hot for the Lord's rod. Give me the staff, Lord.
You're gonna get struck by lightning.
Give me the staff, Lord.
Oh, what? Did I derail you? My bad.
Yeah. Renee Bach took the 23rd Psalm to heart when she went to Uganda to feed the starving children. She took it upon herself to be a savior in a hopeless situation, but unlike Christ, she did not save thousands. Although she did service 940 children, 105 still died in her hands. Bach showcased herself as a medical professional when in all reality, she was only homeschooled. She not only played doctor, but she also played undertaker. 105 families who lost children, 105 children who did not grow up because of the carelessness of Renee Bach. And that's our episode.
I'm so happy we did this nice uplifting episode. halfway through the season. Just really a nice zenith to hit right in the middle, Have some fun.
Hey, it's I don't know.
Hey,
I thought it was good.
No, it was good. I'm just that
I liked it. Well, as much as I could.
Dying Kids episode.
Yeah,
that's all right. Next week is a bundle of fun, except for the sexual assault of minors.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Great. Everything else though is like you're gonna be like, this is so wacky.
Thank you for warning me. I don't do well with that.
It's like this is so wacky. Well, okay, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as Phil Spector.
Okay, good.
It's still pretty. It's not great, obviously.
Yeah, because it's sexual assault of minors.
Yeah, it's not great. But everything else, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe all these crazy antics.
Well, I can't wait for that.
And also human trafficking. But you're like, oh my god, it's so wacky.
Yeah, well, if you want more of that, you can check out our socials at facebook.com/whitecollarsredhands. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at White Collars Pod. We are on Instagram at whitecollars_redhands. We are on TikTok at whitecollarsredhands. You can also watch these on YouTube. We are on, you guessed it, White Collars Red Hands. Please subscribe to that. Yeah, I beg you, subscribe. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Another way you can support us is by leaving a review. We love 5-star reviews, but if you leave an honest review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it. Another way to support us is by just word of mouth, telling a friend, share our stuff. That's usually the best way that people find out about things like this. And then an unfree way to support us is by going to our website, whitecollarsredhands.com, and clicking on our merch tab. It'll take you over to TeePublic, and you can get whatever you want with our logo on it. Another way you can support us too is if you hear a white collar crime story and you're like, Nina and Kashan should cover that. Well, then send it our way. You can do that via email at whitecollarsredhands. No.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
What? It's the same thing you said 7 other times.
Well, I was thinking like the @ symbol.
You're like, how do I say that?
I don't know.
How do I say the @ symbol? I don't understand.
I said @
How do I do it?
When I said @ I was thinking the @ symbol in my head, and I was like, no, that you don't do that for email. But then I was like, oh damn,
that's where it's from originally.
Yeah, so you can.
It's whitecollarsredhands@gmail.com. Okay, you can send your recommendations there or contact us through our website.
Just DM us.
Yes, on any of the other things that are also named White Collars Red Hands. You can do it there too.
All right, I think that's it.
I think that's it too.
All right, well, you have a great day.
Me or the people? Who are you talking to?
The people.
All right,
thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on another episode of White Collars Red Hands.
Yes.
I don't know why I glitched.